When you think of Pokemon, what do you think of? Ash, Pikachu, and a variety of your childhood happiness. Well, what if I asked you to recall some not-so-happy-filled moments, such as how Cubone wears his deceased mother's skull as protection, or how Darkrai will send people into hellish, nightmare-filled sleep? Because that's exactly what we're going to be looking at today. Get those happy thoughts you had about Pokemon out of the way, from a blimp that'll bring your child and Pokemon into the unknown, to an oversized pumpkin that sings joyfully as it brings you to the afterlife. Here is a collection of the most disturbing Pokédex entries. We're going to be going into order of single Pokemon into evolutions, and starting off with the Pokemon that gave me the idea, something I found a long time ago, Phantump, which has a Pokédex that states it's a tree stump possessed by the spirit of a dead lost child, who often feels lonely. So if there's somebody nearby, it'll direct them by mimicking other children, causing them to also become completely lost. Not just that, but when it cries, it sounds like eerie screams. So this Pokemon gets you lost in an abandoned forest, and if that's not bad enough, it's mimicking a child while doing so, and when it probably sees you get upset about being lost, its cries are just gonna scare you more as they sound like screams. That's a pretty messed up story if you didn't know before. Now, onto an oversized jack-o'-lantern, Gourgeist, who is said in its Pokédex to stalk dark streets singing a frightening song to scare people. Coming in various sizes, they'll pick and choose who they drag to the afterlife. Its small size chooses children, the large size goes after adults, and its super size chooses anybody it pleases. They'll visually show happiness as they drag you with their hair-like arms into the afterlife. It's a little scary, basically imagining a giant possessed pumpkin singing and stalking you just to bring you to your end, which it shows you in enjoyment. This is just the beginning of Pokemon who seem to love to bring people to the afterlife. From one Pokemon stalking the innocent of prey to the next, we have the Pokemon Cacturne. With a Pokédex that notes as pack travelers, they'll trail behind desert wanderers during dusk and night who become paranoid and tired. Once they become too weak, they'll collapse. That's when these Pokemon will attack and basically eat you alive. The thought of enjoying a nice desert walk when you slowly notice a couple cactus that weren't there before, after a while, you realize that couple turn into a dozen, they make you so paranoid you walk for hours until you're so drained you can't walk any longer, and you collapse. At this point, you won't even notice the group consuming you alive, as they leave little but dry bones behind. This all happens during a slowly darkening night sky, or perhaps a moonlit one. So the next time you're walking through the desert, make sure there's not a dozen cactus following you. But wait, something's a bit off. It's actually a Mimikyu, a dark form that's put on a disguise of a Pikachu as it knows it's a famous Pokemon. Mimikyu ultimately just wants some attention. While seeking this attention, if the rag is ever removed or seen underneath, the true form is so cursed to view that whoever sees it will end up dying. In the case of the Pokédex, very painfully. However, when hiding naturally, someone ended up breaking its neck, which seems sinister enough already. It'll endlessly seek revenge on whoever broke its neck as to not be discovered as a monster. However, looking at itself in a mirror to fix its neck, it cries as it finds it hard to fix. A sad and disturbing case in the Pokédex. From a Pokemon too scared to show itself, to one that might a little too much, we move on to Beware. With a Pokédex that states that it loves to hug, but with a habit of squeezing a little too hard. That sounds great until you realize that the hold it has you in is breaking your bones, collapsing your lungs, and squeezing all your organs together. You are quite entirely being bear-hugged. Not just this, but it can run fast enough to travel on top of water and jump atop buildings. This Pokemon is terrifying. For all the novice trainers looking to befriend a strong Pokemon, beware of this one, as you might find yourself accidentally being sent to the afterlife. This next Pokemon gets worse the more we read forward. Frostlass, whose Pokédex mentions that it's born from the spirit of a woman who was lost in icy mountains. She finds prey and freezes them, mostly men, to -58 degrees, then displays them in their house. Frostlass can transform into a human woman to trick the men or Pokemon it's trying to capture. So let's look at it this way. You're lost, cold, and alone in the mountains, and at this point, so far gone, that if you see another hiker, you're probably just gonna want to get some help. So this woman is calling you like, hey, over here, and you're totally gonna walk up to him. But then out of nowhere, she turns into a Pokemon, freezes your ass like a blizzard, and she drags your body away to her cave, and displays you. And when she's ready, she'll consume your soul. What a terrible way to end. The next one, Banette, with a Pokédex that states it's a possessed doll made from a grudge since it was junked or thrown away. This one isn't so bad, and I think it sounds worse than it is. It's mostly an upset doll, which will revert back into form if it's treated right, or if it kills the child that threw it away. So pretty sinister. It also stabs itself with pins to mirror the feeling onto its victims with a curse. So if any kids just forget about their dolls, they'll turn into a Pokemon and turn their emotions and pain physically onto the child. Slightly disturbing in intentions, but it just wants some love overall. Once it does get this love, it unzips its mouth and lets go of the energy that's inside. And in the Pokédex it states that there is energy that does come out, and if it sounds like a scream, that's probably even worse, but who knows. The last of these messed up Pokédex entries comes from a legendary, specifically Yveltal, similar to the Gigantamax Hatterene, but worse on every level. If it is anything similar, probably in a large mile radius, once it dies and begins to cocoon, it absorbs the life energy of every living thing in the vicinity. So plants, Pokemon, humans, all the microorganisms, everything, poof, gone. Imagine that. It's the equivalent to a nuke, but a little more terrifying, as there may be a chance to hide from a nuke in a bunker, but I imagine you can't hide from a biological targeting explosion. So you're gone regardless. There were some other really good entries I didn't touch on, such as Serena and Houndoom leaving wounds that surpass your physical life, or how Gengar's chill is a sign of an inescapable approach. But I wanted to give the best non-entry to probably the most well-known in terms of an unsettling Pokédex, to Cubone, said to wear its deceased mother's skull for protection, as its cries echo through the holes as a sad melody, and how its evolution, Marowak, finds the bones that it uses to attack with from a graveyard of their own kind. This Pokemon has a great Pokédex to shape future unsettling entries on. So there we have it, a handful of Pokemon's best disturbing and creepy Pokédexes. There were still a bunch that I didn't touch on, but I think I got the bulk of the good ones. It's not surprising to realize that there are so many, especially the ghost types. Nonetheless, very cool to read and learn about, and this is just the surface of the many creepy things surrounding Pokemon and their games, which hopefully I can touch on in the future. Regardless, I hope everyone enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.